Here in Berkeley, there's a big push to eat organics and to eat locally, what's in season, and that's also mentioned in a verse in the Quran. In addition to that verse, are there any other, hadith or Quranic verses that would encourage, the meaning of tayyib to mean without pesticides, without all these other things? And then the second question is, most healthcare practitioners will talk about diet and exercise. So are there any aspects from the life of the Prophet ﷺ that address exercise?
Yeah. Yes, the move towards eating organic and local foods is really not a new idea. If you look into the texts of traditional Islamic healthcare books, they emphasize that people should eat local foods and also use local remedies from the local herbs. And in a way, it's amazing, isn't it, that today the ordinary foods are so toxic, so poisonous, that we have to have organic foods. The whole food cycle and the food chain, including the animal food, should be normal, which means not full of poisons. So it's a good move in one way, but the whole system needs to be addressed. So, to use a computer language, template should be organic foods. People should have to look for toxic poisons and foods if they want them. We shouldn't have to search for organic foods, and we shouldn't have to pay a premium for organic foods at the moment, because the system is skewed in a way that favors toxic produce and chemical water and so on. So that's the perversion in a way. You mentioned whether there's anything in the prophetic tradition or in the wider tradition of medicine. Yes. If you look at exercise, we need to define. But if you look at the lifestyle of the earlier generations, there were people who were very active. And again, this earlier hadith that a strong believer is better than a weak one, and there is khair in both. Again, if you look at this idea, then it encourages health promoting activities, and one of those activities would be exercise appropriate to the person's gender, lifestyle, their mizaj, and their circumstances. And the earlier books, whether they're the books by people like Ibn Sina or others, have massive detailed instructions on exercise and what kind of exercise is suitable in which season, for what kind of lifestyle, and what kind of temperament. So yes, activity and exercise is very important. Again, I suppose a note on the exercise is that many modern exercise methods and places where people go to exercise, apart from few people, is really a kind of an industrialization of exercise. And many of the exercises are based on barbarian principles, because they don't take into account the time of the year when people need to exercise, what kind of exercise should they do. It doesn't take into account their individuality. People now speak about it, but really if you ask people what kind of exercise is appropriate for my temperament, they have no understanding. Most of the training for exercise people doesn't take those considerations. It's not refined enough. And also one sees a lot of damage done to people because they don't approach the exercise correctly. When they're unfit, they take up exercise, and then it creates damage really. And many of the exercises places have become places where a lot of unhealthy products are sold, which are again full of all sorts of things. If you look at other societies like the Chinese and the Indians and others, their exercise methodologies and approaches are much more sensible. Again, as people, we've really almost lost the exercise knowledge and expertise from our tradition, which I think needs to be brought back into our lives. And the last point really is that prayer itself has an exercise dimension to it when done correctly. Obviously, the main purpose of the prayer is a spiritual one, but there is an exercise aspect to it if done correctly. I hope that answers some of your questions. Yeah?